They often say there's more than one way up the mountain. The Ronin usually chooses the road less traveled. It is often a lonely road and often a dangerous road, but it is the most rewarding in terms of what you find out about yourself and those around you. This is where we discuss the trials, tribulations, and methods that those Ronin use to overcome those obstacles on their way, the Ronin Code. All right, guys, this is Ronin Code, Ep.6. Took a while to get back, but came back strong. We've got my man Wayne Johnson, Dominick Adams. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let's start with you, Dom.
Dominick Adams, co-owner, co-founder of SOMEHWHERE. Not SOMEHWHERE Official, not SOMEHWHERE Cafe, but SOMEHWHERE, which is down in Southeast DC, Navy Yard, Capitol Riverfront, depending on what side of the coin you're on. We are a fashion meets cafe hybrid shop that serves locally roasted but globally sourced coffees as well as teas, and we have a whole host of like fashion apparel and footwear sourced from brands all over the world, primarily focusing on men's current fashion trends, streetwear, and all things interesting in that sphere.
All right, bet. My man Wayne, welcome to the show. How are you today? Let them know what you're about.
Good, man. My name's Wayne in Nightlife and Hospitality. I'm a partner in St. Eve's and Abigail nightclubs and Kitsuin Ramen Bar on H.
Sweet. I really got to get through there and definitely get a picture in front of that Hakusai wave. You know, I'm a big Japanese nerd fan. So, but all right. So basically kind of what we're discussing is something that you guys are uniquely, I guess, close to and have experienced as a result of the things that have gone on, which is, you know, that ability to adapt and pivot and kind of shift focus and almost anticipate adversity as it comes up, right? Like, nobody assumed we'd all be shut down. Of course, my business has a lot to do with in-person. I just had a corporate deal 6 days before lockdown hit. And, you know, that went from being me with 500 potential clients to me and me alone. So, but what it is about shifting and being able to predict the adversity so that you're kind of ahead and not necessarily always reactionary. So Dom, let's start with you. First thing I want to bring up is the idea you guys had for the window shop, which I thought was real unique and also genius because it's kind of a play on the idea of people always wanting to just walk by and look in, but you guys took it to the next level. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Thank you. Yeah, the whole idea of a window shop, I don't want to say it was birthed out of desperation, but how we sort of came up with that was that, you know, we had built sort of a web presence and a web shopping experience, so to speak, but our whole business plan and model was all built on hand-to-hand, like personal in your face, like the communal aspect of shopping. And so, you know, 2-3 weeks into COVID-19, it's like, well, we can't do that. And online is only going to go as far as, you know, you can take it. And based on the economy and everything else, how can you still bring an experience to someone? So the whole idea behind Window Shop was like, hey, you know, if you're going to get fresh air and you got to walk around with this mask and got to walk the dog, or you know, you and your kids need to stretch your legs out a bit to keep from quarantine getting the better of you, why not give you something to sort of look forward to? So the idea was really birthed in, you know, our travels, in that we're in and out of Europe a few times a year. And we recently had did a big trip to Japan. And so one of the things we experienced in Japan was being in the train system. There's all these like QR things where people can shop for groceries and like general household things. And we said, okay, hey, this is like a way we can sort of bring that into our environment. But to make it interesting, we can highlight special collaborations or special product that's limited in nature. But instead of relying in on who has the best bot or who has the best high-speed internet connection, let's still give them that first come, first served experience. So the only way you could sort of unlock the opportunity to purchase the product was to come physically use your device to unlock the code to get to the transaction.
That's genius. Very, very dope. I thought that was definitely one of the more interesting ways I've seen people utilize, one, the environment, since you guys are built in an area that has a lot of residential complexes built around there. But two, just kind of always trying to move forward, because I know one of the tough things with clothing is you have the inventory already, right? Like you have to move it at some point.
Right. You own the stuff, so
yeah,
you
like,
got to do
you gotta
something
get
with
it
it. You
off.
can't send it back.
You gotta get it off. Wayne, especially you being in the hospitality industry, DC really hasn't bounced back all the way from that yet. You guys did a really good job of shifting the focus towards Kitsuan and really pushing as much as you can to make that something that people could experience as soon as they possibly could. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences and kind of how you guys transitioned and went through some of that?
Yeah, so obviously the clubs are closed. We don't know exactly when we're going to reopen. We're in a phase where it's basically requiring a vaccine. So with that happening and us trying to stay relevant, at one point everything was closed, even Kitsuan. But luckily we have the back patio, so we were able to open in June with the outdoor space regulations. And then more recently, 50% inside. I'm gonna be honest. It's been obviously terrible for the nightclubs. It's like an awful thing. I mean, there's a lot. That's a whole nother discussion. But
Yeah,
it's been really, really good for Kitsuan to push focus there, because it gives people an opportunity to come check it out. Because I mean, to be honest, there's really not much they can check out right now, and we're in a sweet spot of loungy bar restaurant thing where it's like you can still come have a good time, have a drink. I mean, it's not a club. You're not going to stand up on our couches or anything like that. We're a restaurant, but it's a good time. We play good music. We play, curated playlists from DJs, local DJs. Jerome Baker's made a playlist for us. And I mean, it's a good vibe. We play the games, all the sports on TV. So it gives people opportunities to come out the house and still have a good time, which is definitely, to stabilize the revenues for the business, to be self-sufficient in such a dark time, which is good.
yeah.
And hopefully that carries over into when we reopen, people keeping on the top of their mind that, let's stop past here before we go to the club.
Right. That's a really good point, is being able to like stay on the top of people's minds, especially as things transition in a time when so many things are becoming forgotten. I mean, I could say that specifically for somebody, I have a space, I have that corporate thing going on, but I completely was like, I have no idea when those people are even going back to work. And I have one of their executive as a client, and he was like, dude, I don't even know when I'm going back inside the office. So understanding that shift and trying to stay topical in other ways, I've tried to increase social media presence, is actually really genius. Let's shift topics a little bit and just talk about what drove both of you to become, I guess, the sort of creative entrepreneurs that you are. Wayne, I'm going to start with you just because I've known you for a while. You definitely are always on to a new endeavor and always ever expanding. Can you just talk a little bit about like what's at the core intrinsically about like what you're looking for or chasing out of the constant movement forward?
It's not like I don't think I'm like chasing anything per se. I just think I'm trying to establish some brands that are have roots and can last, the years and 10 years. I think a good example would be Mark. In a way, he's had two clubs, have a lifespan of over 10 years each, and be solidified. Whereas the average span for a nightclub anywhere is 3 to 4 years. So that's impressive, and that's what we're trying to build, one thing at a time. We're not in a rush to like try to open up as many things as we possibly can just to say we have these places. We want to make things successful, and if a concept strikes us as a good idea and there's a good placement and a good situation and maybe some good partners and collaborations we can get involved in the project, and we're gonna take advantage of it. But we're not, we have no aspirations just to have some humongous portfolio of places that may or may not be doing well. We're trying to establish, one thing at a time and make sure it's successful and then build from there.
I like it. Impact really is something that I definitely identify with as far as trying to make something that lasts and something that has a legacy behind it that people can remember and keep accessing. Dom, I think you guys really hit the nail on the head with your mixed use concept for Somewhere, right? More than just a clothing shop. It's now a place where people can come, like I came, to sit down, meet, talk, have some really good coffee. Can you talk about that as well?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us has always been, we're getting a bit long in the tooth here. So, my partners and I. So, when we were kind of growing up, everything that we wanted to do that was sort of in this sphere happened in New York or LA, or even when Vegas started to sort of become sort of this cultural sort of play with experiences. And so everything that we were sort of finding interesting, sort of during that golden era of like streetwear and like hip hop and all of that, happened on a time where DC sort of got overlooked a bit. Even though when you sort of look behind the curtain, there was always a sort of a guy from DC involved or pulling the strings somewhere. Yeah. And so, we always wanted to leave the city almost in a better way than where we found it. So it was very important for us to sort of have the ability to have some of these brands that people could see, touch, and experience in a genuine way. And so I had someone I used to work with years ago once tell me, always remember you're selling luxury and you're selling these experiences, but you are not luxury as long as, you're here to serve it. So, that always stuck with me. And so sort of the Apple approach of like saying, hey, well, let's experience this and hopefully it sticks with you and you sort of appreciate it and want to grow up from there. And I think in DC for a long time, just being a native here, a long time, a lot of these spaces were like sort of created, managed and operated by like sort of outside presences where like they sort of had a DC door, but the person didn't live here. They didn't operate it. They just sort of like, here you go. And so it was like, what if we turned this thing on its head? So we sort of this world view, but like, with a DC guy's hat and glasses sort of on it, and what that looked like. And so, that's sort of what we set out to do. And then, and then the world changed once again. And so then, you have to sort of figure out, okay, how can we still genuinely do this? And that's a big part of, I think, why we all choose to still be on teams. And I think it's dope that I think Wayne, and I, not even having like, a close relationship, I think we both use the word we a lot. And as we're talking through this Zoom session, and I think that sort of speaks to a genuine appreciation for understanding we're at a time in our life to truly work with people that we want to work with and people that make us better and we make them better in that environment.
I really like where you're going with that, especially talking about referencing the term we. Networking, team building, things like that, I've realized are beyond important. Part of the reason I was able to get to the place that I'm able to get to as far as not having to take the approach of the average trainer or fitness provider is because of, one, not only having clients, but understanding the use of networking with them and then networking beyond that. Case in point, having a degree of separation with you, Dom, and Steve Place, and keeping contact with people over years and years and just seeing where people fall in place and fit with that. I want to talk about that only because I do believe that is the future of any industry, is creative collaboration, but like curated collaborations, right? Like, so with this one, having you and Wayne on, even though you guys are in slightly different industries, you guys have a similar experience as far as going into building that. Can you discuss, Wayne, going back to that we concept, how you've been able to discern and kind of navigate the world over time and build your team to where it is now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably a little bit of an outlier here where, we have definitely, me personally, I met Tony, who's my business partner, through networking, through friends of friends. A lot of people think we're related or we grew up together. That's not the case. I mean, you know my background. This was post Love nightclub that I met Tony, so I was already in it, for lack of better words. And then obviously we work together on everything that we do. Uh, my, I think our networks complement each other as well. And with that being said, we're able to like kind of do like not best of both worlds, but just kind of take people that probably would never collaborate and put them together or put them together with us into situations that make sense. Kitsun was a good example. I mean, even like the relationship with Pusha T came via a relationship that I had with Jan, and then the relationship with the Grants that also are part of Kitsun came via Tony's relationship with them that spans years when they were younger, basketball and stuff like that. So in that aspect, I think that we do well with networking. I will say that and this is just me because I'm just like an introvert, but I kind of have a really, really solid team of people, and I try to take that team and do whatever the next project is with the same people, even if it's something that John Doe on the team might have no experience or any real kind of talents to lend to a specific project, but he may think, but we're a unit, we move as a unit, and I'm sure that at some point, or there is something that someone in my circle could aid any new concept that we come up with. So that's how we move. But I definitely have built relationships over the course of my my career in hospitality and nightlife, and it's definitely put us in position and in rooms to even move, whether it be with the same people, but it gave us an opportunity, whether it be with a landlord or some investor or someone who wants to collaborate on even just a holiday party that wants to rent out one of the venues or something like that. So it's big or small, networking plays a huge part. But I will say, building a solid team and moving with your team and knowing who's strong at what and who lacks in other areas is a really good way to move, because I think there's no surprises and everyone's on the same page.
I really like that, Dom. I'm gonna piggyback on that specifically because I was able to get in contact with you through Steve Place, right? And Steve Place knew me back in 2012 when he was writing for a DC blog, and I was still trying to rap. Not saying I don't have bars, but I just decided rap's not what I'm going to do.
Man, we
got
can
bars.
do a merch party in
Bars
somewhere, and then Kitsun can do the after set.
Yeah, you already know. Like, we're going to throw this together somehow. But, speak to that as well, because you guys have a slightly unique team. I know Steve is one of those kind of, chameleons where no matter what room you drop that dude in, he's definitely going to find a way to connect the dots. Talk about how that kind of came about for you guys, because you did talk about, traveling and seeing different parts of the world and how your experiences have come together.
Yeah, so that's the unique piece of our team, and to me, it is interesting right now in the climate that we're dealing with in terms of politics and just I think some of the social sort of commentary that's happening right now, and then everyone's talking about diversity and how to know and work with this group or that group, or really supporting each ethnic agenda and things like that. But that's something that we sort of do naturally, and I think that we have grown to appreciate it more based on the climate. But it's something that we've been sort of dealing with since the inception of the brand and of the climate. So at its core, with SOMEHWHERE, you have myself, you have Will Sharp, and you have Steve that all sit as co-founders. And based on how this idea sparked, Will and I more so come from the core fashion side of it. So Will comes from the side where Will designed and operated and owned and produced and ran a brand called Dirkle, which was a big street player in that golden sort of era. So pretty much from, I think Dirkle started in 2002-ish, and really saw some big waves sort of happen in 06, 07, 08. Sort of with the rise of the cool kids, Chuck English, Mikey Rocks, and Mac Miller, and Action Bronson and all those guys, those guys in Uptown XO, and when all those guys, Gordo Brega, sort of started popping off. And so, and then I come from sort of the Major family tree. And so I used to work with Ducky for years before Major opened. Ducky was still doing the Record Concepts agency. So when he was handling the marketing of like New Era and the marketing of EA Sports and the Madden Challenge and all that stuff. And so when we sort of clicked up back in like 2010-ish, 11-ish, we sort of worked on a mixed use concept that later became Makedo. And as that project sort of, went some ways, I think the mission got a little different than what we initially thought we were in for. But the idea of having a smaller, more concentrated effort in actual Navy Yard district sort of existed for me back in like 09-ish. Because, selfishly, I'm from Southwest, primarily like raised down there. So for me, it was always important to have a shop either in Southeast or Southwest, just because for whatever reason, none of these shops have Southeast or Southwest addresses. And so, when it was time to sort of like concentrate and start on a new project, say, hey, I want to do this thing. Will was like, hey, I'm with you. And, as you're sort of trying to figure that out, that's a really scary moment. And, Steve just on a humble, like you said, that guy just pops up randomly. And I remember we actually ironically had coffee and he was like, what are you working on? I was like, I don't want to say, and then I showed him and he was like, yo, you're going to do this. And I was like, what the hell what do you mean? He's like, no, you're going to do it. And I'm going to help you. And I was like, okay, fine. Let's do it. And from there, we started building just an amazing roster of investors and advisors. Like Modi's one of our investors. Joe from Songbird is one of our investors. So we have like just this really amazing crew of folks that are really good at their abilities. But at the same time, they're not like, how can I put this? And Wayne might feel me on this. When you have investors, sometimes you have that one investor that's like the backseat driver, and you're just like, dude, am I driving? You driving? Who wants to drive? And like a lot of these, all of our investors are cool. They're just like, we believe in the vision, and more than anything, they believe in us. And so they just sort of let us do our thing. But even, getting the place built, we used all like local skilled workers. Our baker, is Black owned. Our roastery that we used is like has a Black and a Jewish owner, and that all sort of works together. And so we try to really keep close to the crew that can elevate us and get us where we have to be, but also someone that you genuinely want to see succeed, will work best with you. And so we've been super blessed and thankful in that way to be able to sort of pick those pieces up and move those pieces in that way.
I think you guys both touched on some really, really interesting points, specifically as I'm still trying to figure out my own thing, right, and still putting things together. One of which is realizing that, like, there's always going to be people who have different talents and different abilities to jump in and throw in. But two, you have to have a team of people, right? And what I've learned, right, is sometimes you, like you said, the backseat driver, sometimes you get the person where everybody wants to be Tom Brady. And I remember having to have this conversation with one of my friends where I was like, yo, Gronk still gets all those rings, my dude. Gronk goes to the Hall of Fame, so does Brady. Like, everybody, Brady can't catch passes. That's why he's throwing them, my dude. Like, but he needs somebody to catch him for the end zone. And I think looking at it in terms of what different pieces can fit along the way is really important, specifically because there's always going to be something that may come up down the line that may have a connection to somebody from years ago. Then that person has a connection on top of that you can put together. And that's kind of specifically why I tried to put this together, because I realized there's people, not necessarily you two, but I've come across a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily be in the same room together, but they all have the same understanding of what it takes to put something together from the ground up, what it takes to create. And that's one, having a vision, finding somebody else who can see that vision as well beyond just what you're going to do for them in the immediate. And then I think Scooty talked about it as well in one of my last talks, which was, realizing that you can offer something as a way to start that networking relationship without always having to bring something to bring it into yourself. Last but not least, guys, do you guys have any thoughts as to the future of your respective industries and how to go about pivoting. One of my clients always reminded me that, you know, one of the best things you can do is get really good at being unprepared, if that makes sense, right? Like learning how to adapt to the unforeseen thing, or Bruce Lee says, be like water. You know what I mean? Being able to flow with things is something I find really important. Wayne, how do you feel kind of the future of the industry can go, or do you guys have ideas? Are you constantly always thinking about new things just in case at this point? Because this is pretty unforeseen for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows what's going to happen. I mean, people, you know, on one side, there's a fear that people may become comfortable and content with the way life is and being inside and staying inside, and maybe they're saving money, or maybe, you know, their sleep hours are more healthy now, and they can't fathom staying up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's one possible situation.
I'm sleeping more.
Yeah, the other more likely one is that everyone just has pent up energy, money, and just memories and nostalgia
Max.
for the club, and that's probably the more likely situation. So we'll probably return. We'll probably have a spring that's probably one of the best spring that I think that the nightlife industry in DC has had in a long time, and then I think we'll just get back to normal. If Virginia has showed me anything, it's that people that they, you know, they're gonna come back out.
That's so real.
People go to very far places to very.
Yo, Georgia too, man. Georgia is just it never happened.
I can't believe it. I'm not gonna lie. Like Virginia is one of those places where I like never want to be caught after a certain time at all. But you're right. I never thought I'd see the day.
I've seen people venture to far out places in Virginia and spend money at places that would be never frequented ever. Like, so, I mean, kudos to those people in Virginia, because they're making a killing right now. Those operators, you know, making money they've never, ever, ever thought they would ever see in a night, which is good for them. But to see people go to those extents, it lets me know that it will be okay come spring, probably, and I'm guessing spring. Yeah, I mean, as far as like new things, I mean, we got some projects that we're working on right now, that hopefully we can probably announce maybe in a few weeks. We'll see, hopefully.
Bet. I like what you're saying though, my man. Like, you gotta take account of the climate and see what's going on, and then like use that to kind of base your vision off of. Hopeful optimism and calculated optimism is definitely a skill that people need to practice a little bit more when they start to make these kind of death blows to themselves that I've seen people do in certain industries and just shut stuff down. I'm like, all right, bro. Dom, what about you?
I think that our industry is like really changed forever. You know, it's sort of the opposite. So we've seen, especially the multi-brand retailers. I mean, there's so many of them. I mean, like legendary stores that are either gone and like not coming back. Like, you know, you have like Need Supply, like Tinton, Corsicoma, and their New York outpost is like gone. Opening ceremony is gone in a way that we knew it. You know, there's been all this talks about Neiman's and Nordstrom, Saks, and all those bigger guys sort of getting caught under the tidal wave of what's happening. And then as unfortunate as that is, I see it as an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity of, you know, some of us that have been very fortunate to be able to how to navigate and pivot, survive in this thing. And I think for brands from production schedules and shipping, and I mean, I talk to DHL way more than I ever should right now as far as getting stuff over the border. But I think what's, I guess, the silver lining in all of it is that I'm seeing so many people become creative again, because access to those dollars is harder to get a hold of. And so right now, we're collaborating with people, and we're talking more to our neighbors more than ever before. And I think it's just because, we can't hop on a plane and do this and that and, go over here and do that. And so now it's like, okay, who's still alive? Who's healthy? Who's moving? Okay. Oh, you're on my team. Okay, let's all go together. And so now we're sort of attacking these things in a more calculated way. And I think, whoever survives in my game, through this. And on the cafe side, yeah, I mean, massive closures, massive shutdowns. And so now, you have a lot of talented baristas like on the street. And, it's terrible. But at the same time, product is getting better. And so like taste profiles in matcha and coffee is getting better because we have more time. And to be honest with you, you just have to earn that dollar so much more. And so you're going to work way harder if it's harder to get the money. The money's still there. You just got to work way harder for it. And so whoever survives this sort of Hunger Games play is going to, throw one up for Rue and, keep it tight. So I'm excited because I think that innovation's back in the game. And I think that hunger and that passion of understanding the experience, because again, the hand-to-hand combat of, in-your-face brick-and-mortar retail, it never left. People just didn't work hard enough to keep that experience going. And so, I would love to compete with some of these big box online retailers, but the reality of it is to get to that scale just takes time. And, we've only been open for a year. So where we're winning still is those experiences and bringing that new flavor to the city.
I like that. In closing, that was really good, specifically because it definitely is more about the experience now with them being limited in the first place. Kitsuin, as Wayne talked about before, providing an experience that is, full circle as far as being able to eat, chill, lounge, hear good music, somewhere having the coffee shop aspect to it and kind of being forward thinking in the experiences you're presenting has clearly helped both of you guys through this time. Just want to thank you both for joining me. This has been fantastic. Everything I thought it would be. Guys, you know what I mean? We'll keep it going. Love to see how you guys go ahead in the future, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, man. Thank you.
Yeah.